please welcome distinguished Toastmaster, past District 33 Governor, and accredited speaker, Wayne Choate.
Thank you. Well, District 49, aloha! 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 I can't tell you how happy I am to be here in District 49 and attend your conference on this very special occasion of celebrating your 60th anniversary as a district. I think you ought to give yourself an applause, don't you? Yes, I am thrilled to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to all of you about one of my favorite topics. I want to talk to you about the positive power of doing. And for those of you in this room who would like to accomplish more, do more, be more, for those of you who'd like to gain more respect from your peers than you ever dreamed possible, you're in for a treat. Now, before I get to that, and while we're just getting acquainted, let me ask all of you, how many of you, by show of hands now, how many of you have ever heard my name, Wayne Choate? You know, before the promotion and build up for this conference, how many of you have ever heard my name or seen it in print? All right. Well, the rest of you who did not raise your hands, you might have. You might have, because back when our son Wayne Jr. was a senior in high school, he came to Honolulu for the spring break. And he got stopped for speeding and possession of a six-pack. I thought, oh my goodness, we have raised a criminal. And of course my wife said what you would think she would say. She said, well, it's from your side of the family. Well, we received a phone call that night from a lawyer friend of ours, a fellow by the name of Herb Nalla. Some of you may know Herbie. Herbie called us up and he said, you know this trouble that Wayne Jr. is in? He said, I believe we can keep it out of the paper. He said he's a good boy. He's playing ball this year. He graduates in June. He's a good boy. I think we can keep it out of the paper. I said, Herbie, if you do, I will have you disbarred. I said, I want it in the paper. And I want it in the paper because I want Wayne Jr. to see it. I want his friends to see it. I want his coaches to see it. I want the world to see it. So they put it in the paper. And they forgot to put the junior. So you may have heard of Wayne Choate before, but it's important for me to tell you that was not me, that was my son Wayne Jr. I know you're not interested, but just for the sake of the record, Wayne Jr. is now 38 years old, has 3 children, and he's still grounded. Yeah, I don't hold a grudge, you know. But thank you so much for that very nice introduction. That was a nice complimentary introduction, wasn't it? Didn't she do a nice job with that? Yeah. I must warn you, though, I have found out that a complimentary introduction like that could get you into trouble. I found this out a couple of weeks ago when I was speaking in Dallas, Texas. I was speaking to a group of cattlemen there, and I was sitting at the head table with the president of the association when the master of ceremony stepped to the microphone and gave an introduction much like the one that you just gave me. And after that introduction, I was introduced. I fired into my speech. I must have been into it, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 minutes. And then all of a sudden, this one man sitting down front jumped up, pulled a gun from each one of his holsters, and started making his way to the head table. I turned to the president of the association. I said, what is he going to do to me? He said, oh, you don't have anything to worry about. But I sure feel sorry for that person who introduced you. But I sure hope no one's packing here today. That's all I know. Maybe you should have taken the attitude of the fellow down in San Antonio. Down in San Antonio, after I left Dallas and went down to San Antonio, gave the same speech, but the introduction down there was a little bit different. Introduction down in San Antonio went like this. I don't know too much about our speaker here this evening, but I hear he's pretty good. And if he is, let's get it on. And if he's not, Let's get it over with. And that was my introduction. And that's enough of the marginal hors d'oeuvres. What do you say we get down to the main course? Why don't we get into the positive power of doing? You want to? Yes. I think the best way I can get into it is to simply say to all of you, what the mind can conceive, you can achieve. You've heard that before, right, Dean?
Yes.
You've heard it?
Yes.
And haven't you heard them say, you know, these positive thinking speakers, haven't you heard them say, why, if you would just think big, you would be big. I bet you've heard that one too, huh, John? Yeah, yeah. You've heard that? And what do they call all that stuff? Don't they call it the power of positive thinking? You know what they call it? Well, Mr. Director, ladies and gentlemen, I suspect everyone in this room has heard those affirmations before. I mean, how could you help but hear it? I bet you noticed the same thing that I have. Haven't you noticed that you can't hardly pick up a book, a cassette tape, a CD, or go to a seminar anymore without hearing, seeing, and or reading something about this positive thinking stuff? And I don't know about all of you, but I am sick and tired of it. Sick and tired. I believe if I have another speaker look me in the eye and tell me that all you got to do is just think it's so, and it'll be so. All you got to do is think you're successful, and you'll be successful. I believe if I have another speaker tell me that, I'm going to scream. You see, I've come to that age in life now where I understand it and realize, and now I know that many of these positive thinking speakers, many of these positive thinking writers, they have sold us a bill of goods, they have taken us down Primrose Lane, they have lied to all of us. And the problem with this lie is there have been millions of people across the length and breadth of our nation who has bought into this lie. And by buying into it, it's had a detrimental effect on our careers, on our lives, on our happiness, and yes, even on the way we think. You know, this whole positive thinking thing can corrupt your thinking. Let me give you a quick example of someone who bought into the lie and messed up his thinking. Charles, there was a fellow back in my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee. That's right, I'm a Southerner. Proud to be a Southerner. I always like to tell people that I'm American by birth, but I'm Southern by the grace of God. Are there any other Southerners in the room? I mean, those that would admit it? Proud to be a Southerner. It's always nice when I found out I'm talking to family. When we're talking to you back there, so raise your hand. But there was a fellow back in my home. Oh, I want to tell you, for those of you who haven't visited the Deep South before, when you go back to the Deep South, one of the first things you will notice about down in the Deep South, down in Nashville and all in that area there, the first thing you're going to notice is about every other person that you meet down there is named Bubba. A lot of Bubbas back there. And you know, I'll never forget the first Bubba that I ever met. And you know, she really wasn't that bad looking. A lot of Bubbas there in the Deep South. But there was a fellow back in my hometown who was by the name of Calvin Lee Rose, and he had the course. Oh, he'd bought all the CDs, attended all the seminars, read all the books. He was a positive thinker. And so positive thinking, Calvin Lee Rose decided he was going to run for political office there in Nashville. So he did exactly what every politician does back there. The first thing they want to do is they want to go down to the courthouse and pick themselves up a voter registration list. So positive thinking Calvin Lee Rose drives down the courthouse, goes in, picks up that voter registration list, comes back, gets into his car, and he puts that voter registration list up above the sun visor. Yeah, up above the sun visor. And he sets out to go out and knock on people's doors. Positive thinking Calvin Lee Rose walked up to this one door. He said, "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Calvin Lee Rose, and I'm running for assistant deputy dog catcher in this here town. And I surely would appreciate your vote." She said, "Calvin Lee Rose, I know you and I know your whole Blaine family, and none of you's any good." She said, "I happen to know you've been divorced 4 times, you play with pasteboard playing cards, you drink whiskey until the wee hours of the morning. She said, "Well, I wouldn't vote for you if you were the last person on earth." She said, "Well, if the buzzards were circling your dead body, if the buzzards were circling your dead body, I wouldn't shoo them." And she said, "Now, if you don't get off my property right this instant, I'm going to get my husband's 16 gauge and fill your rear end full of salt." Undaunted, positive thinking Calvin Lee Rose said, "Thank you, ma'am." And he went back, got into his car, pulled that voter registration list from above the sun visor, scaled down that list of names, came to her name, held the place with his thumb, reached behind his ear, got his pencil. He wet it. And out beside her name, he wrote, "Maybe." Can you believe it? Now, how many of you, be honest now, how many of you in your wildest dreams believe that woman will ever vote for Calvin Lee Rose? It just isn't going to happen, is it? I don't care how many books you read or CDs you listen to or seminars you attend. It just isn't going to happen. And that's the reason why I say, and say again, that many of these positive thinking speakers, many of these positive thinking writers, they have sold us a bill of goods. They have taken us down Primrose Lane. Yes, they have lied to all of us. Now, don't misunderstand me. Please don't misunderstand anything I'm saying up here. You see, I happen to believe that positive thinking is important. Truth is, I think it's essential. But ladies and gentlemen, I have learned over the years, and you can tell by the color of this hair, there's been a lot of years. In fact, I had a friend of mine tell me just the other day, he said, "Wayne, I hope you never live to be as old as you look." I know I'm an old man, but I have learned something over these years. And one of the things that I have learned is, I have learned that positive thinking, although it is important, although it is essential, I have learned that it's really just the start of a process. A process that also includes a behavioral change that I like to call the positive power of doing. And I'd like to take a little time here today to talk with all of you about the positive power of doing. And for those of you in this room who, like me and millions of other people who bought into that lie, for those of you who might be sitting right where you're sitting right now, saying to yourself, "You know, I believe the old boy's got something going on up there. I have been wondering why I'm not as successful as I have been thinking I should be." Well, for any of you who may have bought into the lie, or might be saying that to yourself right now, could I invite you to come a little closer? Will you come a little closer and hear the beautiful truth? And the truth is this: positive thinking is important, but it's really just the start of a process. And so allow me to talk with all of you about the positive power of doing here today. But I must tell you, I have to let you know that the real reason why I'm here today talking with you about it, the real reason why I'm going to camp on this topic, this subject, for a few minutes here today, was because of a neighbor of mine. Oh, he wasn't just a neighbor. He was an unemployed neighbor. An unemployed neighbor. His name was Bill. And Bill was like Calvin Lee Rose. He had bought into the lie. Oh, I remember he used to get up in the morning and he would sing in the shower. He used to play those positive thinking CDs. They would roll right through the neighborhood. Bill used to walk around. He'd puff out his chest. He'd say, "What the mind can conceive, you can achieve." Bill walked up to me one time. Listen to me, will you? Bill walked up to me one time, looked me right in the eye, and he said, Wayne, if you would just think big, you would be big." Would any of you like to know why my neighbor Bill was unemployed? Would any of you care to know why Bill didn't have a job for almost 2 years? Bill never left his house. Bill never so much as filled out an employment application. I'm not even sure he ever made a phone call. You see, Bill was trapped. He was like so many who had bought into the lie. He was trapped. He was stuck. He was stalled in the thinking phase of this process. I asked him one time, I said, "Bill, how's the job hunt going?" He said, "Well, I didn't go out this week. I just didn't feel like it." He told me one time, says, you're not going to wait after the holidays. Yeah, after the holidays, I'll feel more like it. And so here today, allow me to talk with all of you about the positive power of doing, because I believe that we should spend less time thinking about what has to be done and more time just flat out doing it. I am persuaded that there's really only one way to accomplish anything in this life, and would you believe me if I were to tell you I've tried all the other ways? I've tried positive thinking all by itself, like so many of us have. I've tried goal setting, visualization, meditation. You know what? I've even tried hypnosis. And I'm here today, and I can report to all of you that I have found out that there's really only one way to accomplish anything in this life, and that is to start doing it and to keep doing it until you get it done. In fact, I believe it's easier, I really do. I believe it's easier to act yourself into good thinking than it is to think yourself into good action. Now, I know that flies in the face of a lot of conventional self-help litany. You know that litany that says all you got to do is think it so and it'll be so. But if anyone at my age today, if anyone were to walk up to me, look in the eye and say, what the mind can conceive, you can achieve, and if they don't mention the part that behavior plays in it, well, then I think they'd be leaving something important out. Would you agree with that? Does that make sense to any of you? Does it? Let me illustrate for you. I believe I can make my point and maybe give you something that'll help all of this stick to the ribs a little bit. Well, if I could just relate to you a true personal story of mine. A true personal story. I believe it'll help you carry this message out of this room and into your future. Can I tell you my personal story?
Yeah.
Okay? Well, it's going to take me a few minutes to tell you, but I promise you this. I promise you that if you stay with me as I unfold my personal story with you, I promise you're going to walk from this room with 4 little ideas, 4 little suggestions, 4 recommendations that would help anyone in this room accomplish more, do more, be more, and gain more respect from your peers than you ever dreamed possible. And with a promise like that, let me ask you one last time. Can I tell you my story?
Yes.
Well, in order to tell you my story, I have to take you back just a few years, back to when I was asked to speak in Choate, California. I will never forget this speaking engagement. Now, for the benefit of all of you who surely do not know, let me just say that Choate is a small little town about 50 miles north of Fresno, California. Now let me say that again. I'll say that Choate is a small little town, and all of you will say, well, how small is it? It'll help you digest your coffee and your breakfast that you had this morning. I was asked to speak in a small town of Choate, California.
How small is it?
Choate is so small that they have the town's entering and leaving sign on the same post. Choate is so small that their power plant up there is a die-hard battery. All I'm trying to tell you is Choate is a small little town, but I'll never forget my speaking engagement in Choate. I remember I arrived early there so that I could meet with the program chef. Never met the man before, didn't know what he looked like. He and I had only done business over the phone. But when I walked into the room that he and I had agreed to meet, this man stood up. Or more accurately, I should tell you, he unfolded. He just kept reaching for the ceiling. I don't know how tall he was, 6'8", 6'9". He might have been 7 foot tall. I just knew if people were to grow another inch, he'd fork. This was a tall man. And when he completely unfolded, I couldn't help but to notice that he was dressed in Western attire. Oh, he had those expensive cowboy boots on. He had a big belt buckle, had a string tie, had a gun and holster. Yes, he did. A gun and holster on each one of his hips. They look real to me. Gun and holster on each one of his hips. He had a expensive Stetson hat on. And when this long, tall cowboy completely unfolded, he came walking over to me. And he looked down, he said, are you the speaker here this evening? I said, you bet I am. He said, you don't look like a speaker. I said, well, I've been sick. Well, he's 7 foot tall, Greg. What would you have said to him? It's all I can think of saying is carrying 2 guns. That's all I can think of saying is I've been sick. Truth is, I stole that line from a speaker friend of mine, Jeannie Robertson. But that's really all I could think of. I just told I've been sick. I mean, what's the speaker supposed to look like anyway? He said, well, I'm glad you're here early. Let me tell you how our meeting is going to be conducted here this evening. He said, first of all, we're going to start things off. Well, we'll start things off with the cocktail hour over here. The traditional cocktail hour is going to be here. And then after the cocktail hour, we're going to move all the way over here to the banquet hall for our banquet meal. And then after the banquet meal, we're going to do 3 things. Just 3 things. He said the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have the awards presentations. And then after the awards presentation, that is to say we're going to recognize all of our members who've helped the organization grow and to build and to expand. And then after the awards presentation, we're going to have just a little bit of entertainment. And then after the entertainment, we're going to have the featured speaker of the evening. He said, now that will be you, right? I said, I'm your speaker. Now, the thing that made Choate so unforgettable for me, the reason I will never forget that speaking engagement, it wasn't because of that long, tall program chairman. Wasn't because of the Western attire. It really wasn't even because of the little town of Choate. The thing that made that speaking engagement so unforgettable for me was because of this cocktail hour over here. For you see, this cocktail hour lasted well over an hour. As a matter of fact, Quran, they were into that booze for almost 3 hours. Almost 3 hours they were into that booze, but finally someone flicked the lights. You know, to get everyone's attention. They flicked the lights and they motioned for everyone to come from the cocktail hour over to the banquet hall. And of course, everyone came walking in very orderly. And they got into the banquet hall. Listen to this. They got into the banquet hall and they found their seats. I was surprised about that too. But they did. They found their seats. And when they did, the master of ceremonies, or Charles, if you'll pardon the expression, the toastmaster of the event, stepped to the microphone and he said 2 words, and I realized he was loaded. He was loaded, but what he said I'll never forget. He looked out at that audience with those glassy eyes and that slurred speech, and he said, go ahead and enjoy your banquet meal, but be sure and enjoy the free champagne that is on the table. Oh no, not more booze for this audience. Not more alcohol. I said to myself, alcohol? That's the most of which they needed the least. They didn't need any more alcohol. I'm telling you the truth. We could have operated on anyone in that room and never used anesthetics. Are you with me on this? Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? They were soused. Well, that must have been their cue. Because when he told them to go ahead and enjoy that free champagne, they started popping those champagne bottles. Champagne corks started flying through the air. They must have gained some sort of inspiration from that. You know, seeing the champagne corks going through the air. Because it wasn't long after that they started taking bread rolls and throwing them across the room. They started taking little patties of butter, putting them on their knife and flipping them across the room. I'm telling you the gospel truth. A fight broke out in the back of the room. 2 grown men in $200 Stetson hats belting each other out in the back of the room. I can handle this. I'm a veteran. I can handle this. I leaned over to the program chairman and I said, look out there. I said, look, the floor's a mess. I said, the bread, the butter. I said, they're fighting in the back of the room, for goodness sakes. I said, this is not an audience. I said, this is an old Western movie. That's what it is. This is an old Western movie, and that's a posse out there. And I'm afraid that posse's going to hang someone before the night's over. And it might be the only one that's not in Western attire. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get up, I'll do a couple of minutes. They won't even know I was here. He said, I paid you for 40 minutes. You're going to do 40 minutes. Positive thinking? Tell me about it. Well, like I say, I leaned over and I told him the floor is a mess and there's bread and butter and fighting in the back of the room. And he said, you are going to do 40. It's almost as if he sobered up right before my eyes. He said, you're going to do 40 minutes. And so I said, well, I've got to do something and get out of this. And I thought, well, surely I could outrun this program, Sheriff. I mean, he had the high heel boots on, the heavy 6-gun. I'm pretty sure I could outrun him. Well, that was just a fleeting thought. And then I remembered the truth. And the truth is, I had signed a contract with that group up in Choate. And that contract said that I would be there, that I would be on time, and that I would be good. And you know, that contract didn't say anything about them. It didn't say anything about them, the audience. It didn't say they had to be on time. It didn't say they had to be good. It didn't say they had to be sober. Didn't even say they had to be there. So I went on. Keep in mind, I didn't feel like it. I didn't want to, but I went on. I think I know the lesson here. The lesson is life. And you can forget everything I've said up to this point if you'll just remember this. Life is not lived at the level of I'll think about it or I'll do it when I feel more like it. Life is about doing it now, and doing it whether we feel like it or not. Karan, am I saying feelings are not important? Of course not. I'm just saying that feelings will get in the way. If you're not careful, feelings will get in the way, and they will keep you from doing. How many times, listen to me, will you? How many times have we said, I would give anything to be able to play the piano, or to paint, or to sculpt, or to start a garden, or to exercise more, or to serve as a club officer, or a district officer, or serve on a committee? How many times have we said that? And in answer to the question, we keep hearing that same answer, don't we? Well, I've been thinking about it. Or I'm going to do it after the holidays when I feel more like it. And why does that answer keep coming back when we've all heard the expression, haven't we? The emotion to do always follows the doing. In fact, there's a delightful story told about Thomas Edison, where an elderly lady came up to him one time and she said, "Oh, Mr. Edison, it's so wonderful. You get inspired and then you invent these wonderful things." Edison said, "That's not the way it works, lady." Edison said, "I invent these things and then I get inspired." Well, now I'm inspired. Inspired about the privilege of being in District 49 and sharing the positive power of doing. But let me just bring my message around the mountain by telling you, first of all, that my story does have a happy ending. Greg, my personal story does have a happy ending because, well, my neighbor Bill, I'm so happy to tell you that Bill is working now. Bill is gainfully employed, and he would want me to tell all of you that the reason why he's working today is because he moved from the thinking phase of this process into the doing phase. And I'm so glad to tell you that Bill is working now. In my speaking engagement in Chowchilla, as you probably already guessed, I lived through it. I survived it. They didn't hang me after all. And I wish I could tell you that Chowchilla was my most enjoyable speaking engagement. I wish I could tell you that, but that just wouldn't be true. But it would be true to tell you it was my most educational speaking engagement. I learned more that night in that small little town of Choate than I learned at the hundreds of other speaking engagements that had gone before. Now, time doesn't permit for me to tell you everything that I learned there. So I'm going to compress it down to those 4 little ideas, those 4 suggestions, those 4 recommendations I told you I was going to send you out of this room with that would help you accomplish more, do more, be more, and gain more respect from your peers. 4 little ideas, suggestions, recommendations, 4 life lessons. Now, it's going to take me about an hour on each one of these. No, that's not true. I'm almost done. This is the most important part. Stay with me just for a few minutes. 4 life lessons that can change your life for the better. And I am justified in sharing these life lessons with you. Justified because people tell me that I have reached that age in life where I have chronological credibility. Chronological credibility. They tell me that expression of been there, done that, they were thinking of me when they came up with that expression. 4 life lessons that will help anyone in this room accomplish more, do more, be more, and gain more respect from your peers. The first life lesson, if you're writing this down, this will be number 1. The first life lesson I'll pass on to you is always, 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 always do what you say you're going to do. Don't you know there's only 3 people in 10 that can be counted on to do what they say they're going to do? There's only 3 people in 10 that will return a phone call or respond to an email as directed. There's only 3 people in 10 that have adopted a philosophy that says this: if I ever tell you that I'm going to do something, and if I don't do it, then you better read the obituaries. That's the kind of life lesson that would allow you to join the winners in life. That will allow you to accomplish more than you ever dreamed possible and get more respect from your peers. So that's number 1. Number 2, do what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it. You see, after speaking in that little town of Choate, I did a little life reflection. And I remembered that there was a lot of people that would tell me, yeah, Wayne, yeah, I'm going to do it. And they put a little tagline on it. You've heard it before. They'll say, Wayne, I'm going to do it when I get around to it. You've heard that, haven't you? I'm going to do it when I get around to it. Here's what I've discovered, almost without exception. Those individuals who said they're going to do it when they get around to it, they were just building an excuse. They were building an excuse not to do what they say they're going to do. And let's face it, District 49 Toastmasters, we can't put things off until tomorrow. Don't you know that tomorrow doesn't exist? If I were to put it into financial terms, I'd have to tell you that yesterday's a canceled check, tomorrow's a promissory note. The only legal tender we have is today. Only now is negotiable. And never forget this. This very day will too soon be a long, long time ago. So my first life lesson I'll pass on to you is do what you say you're going to do. Join the winners of life. The second is do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. All I'm saying to you in this number 2 life lesson is to live each day to its fullest. Put everything that you can into this day. How many of you have heard of the salutation to the dawn? It was something that was written in the Sanskrit some 4,000 years ago, and it goes like this. Look to this day, for this day is life, the very life of life. And in its brief course lies all the truth and all the realities in existence. While there's a joy of growth, the splendor of action, and the glory of talent. Yesterday is but a memory, and tomorrow is but a dream. But today well lived, makes every yesterday a memory of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. So look well, therefore, to this day, for this day is life. So the first life lesson, do what you say you're going to do. The second, do it when you say you're going to do it. And the third, this is so important, don't miss this one. The third life lesson is do what you say you're going to do, when you said you're going to do it, and do it even when you don't even feel like it. You see, this is where I believe those positive thinking speakers were able to get all of us to buy into their lie. Because after we listen to their CDs or go to their seminars, boy, don't we feel good? Boy, are we inspired? Are we motivated? Are we? Let me tell you something. Something weird happens at night. At night, when we put our head on our pillows, those winds of procrastination and temptation will start coming in. And by morning, when we put our feet out on the cold, cold floor, I'll promise you this, that feeling, that mood, that inspiration will have left you. No, I say that if you want to get ahead in this life, if you want to accomplish more, do more, be more, and gain more respect from your peers, you have to, first of all, do what you say you're going to do. Do it when you say you're going to do it. Do it even when you don't even feel like it. And I'll be the first one to tell you, this is going to be very hard for you to implement into your life on a day-to-day basis. This is really difficult. It takes a lot of persistence to implement these life lessons into your life, but it can change your life. But maybe I can give you a little inspiration. If I could relate to you a little rhyme. It's an old rhyme, comes from the deep south of Nashville. Kind of a long poem, a humorous poem, but has such a great message. See if you can catch the message. It's entitled Persistence. There were two little frogs from inland bogs that had spent the night in drinking. And when morning broke, they both awoke with eyes bloodshot and blinking. And before time was had to gather their senses, or to breathe a prayer for past offenses, a farmer frail came down the swell and he caught them both as quick as winking. Now this farmer was a guileless man, and he threw both the frogs into a milk can. And the can filled up and the lid came down, and both the frogs and the milk were shipped to town. Now the frogs began to quiver and shake as they sobered up on their cold milkshake. Because now they had to kick and swim until their bleary little eyes grew dim. At last one of the frogs cried out in dread. He said, "We're going to drown in here. We're as good as dead." For shame, the other one replied, "A frog ain't dead until he's died." He said, "I'm going to keep on kicking. That's my plan. And we may yet see the outside of this can." No use, faint heart replied, and with a mighty groan, that one frog died. But the other frog, undaunted still, why, he kept on kicking with a firmer will. And finally, with joy too great to utter, he found he'd kicked himself a lump of butter. And hopping up on top of that grease, oh, he just floated around with the greatest of ease. Well, now the moral of the story is, when things get tough all over town, don't give up and don't go down. Just keep on kicking, don't cry or mutter, because one more kick might make your butter. Now, applause, please. Didn't that just about say it? So the first life lesson, do what you say you're going to do. The second, do it when you say you're going to do it. The third is do it when you don't feel like it. And finally, the fourth and final one. Right there in that little town of Choate, I realized for the first time in my life that positive thinking, although it is important, although it is essential, but I have learned that it really is a start of a process, and that is the positive power of doing. Will you promise me you'll remember that? Will you? Oh, you've been a great audience. I hate to leave you, I really do. Every speaker hates to leave a good audience, and you've been great, and I appreciate that. But another reason I got to close is because I've developed throat trouble. Well, not really, but Charles told me if I talk longer than 40 minutes, he was going to slit my throat. But for being such a great audience, let me just close by extending this wish to all of you, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Here's my closing wish, and then I'm done. May you always be blessed with the gift of dissatisfaction and divine discontent. May you have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and an appetite for self-improvement that knows no satisfaction. May you always consider life as your greatest gift, and your membership in Toastmasters is one of your finest investments. May you always think your best, live your noblest, and love your fullest. May the hinges of friendship never rust, and may the wings of love never lose a feather. And finally, until you and I come together again, I pray that you will take these 4 life lessons that I just passed on to you apply them to you, your personal life, your business life, your Toastmaster career. And then the next time you and I come together, it's my sincere prayer that you would walk up to me and you would look me right in the eye and say, Wayne, I've accomplished more, I've achieved more, I've done more, and I've gained more respect for my peers than I ever dreamed possible. And I've done it because of the positive power of doing. God bless you all, and thank you for listening to me.
Wasn't he wonderful? Wow, powerful. Before we present Wayne with this lead, Mia, can you go ahead and give Wayne the lead? This is Elliot's wife, our immediate past district governor, Mia. Beautiful lady. Oh, picture time. They're so shy. One of the things I appreciate about Wayne is that when I became in the key three, or the trio here, Wayne and his wife Kathy was one of the first Toastmasters that I have met when I went onto the big stage. Because in Toastmasters, right, you're in your club and you go to the district. But from there's no national, there's international. So when you're a small town boy like me from Waianae, right, and you come to Hawaii in a district and you go to the international, that's where all of the big wigs are. Wayne and his wife Kathy is a big wig. And when you go to international, everybody there is a DTM. It's a DTM Mecca. I was at Advanced Communicator Bronze or Advanced Leader Bronze when I went up there. So when I would go with my name tag, I would like put my hand over here. Because seriously, everyone that you meet there are a DTM. And again, Wayne is a big wig. And I've seen him over the years, but last night was the first time that I actually got to hear him speak. And today, I got even more. Isn't he a wonderful speaker? Yeah. So, let me read what the plaque says. District 49 Toastmasters appreciates Wayne Choate, keynote speaker. District 49 Spring 2016 Conference, May 14, 2016. Thank you, Wayne, for all you do. Aloha! And let's do it!
Say thank you very much once again for having me at your district conference. And when you mentioned you were a farm boy, I reminded one time I said to Kathy, my wife Kathy, I said, when I was a little boy, I lived in the country. Kathy said, when you were a little boy, everyone lived in the country. Thank you.
Mahalo, mahalo. Big round of applause for Wayne. At this time, I'd like to call up our Toastmaster of the day.